I recently had a chance to sit down with Sandy Munro from Munro & Associates, the guy most famous for tearing cars apart and telling you how they're made. We had a great conversation, and it resulted in an awful lot of questions and comments left by viewers just like you. Maybe not just like you, but a little bit like you, and wanted to address them so we could move forward and get a better understanding. I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. So in the interview, we had a bunch of questions, trailers, semis, all that. But we also talked a little bit about Nikola, about Lucid, about other vehicles, and even about, we didn't talk about Arcimoto. So questions came up about all those things, and figured they would get, some of them at least, addressed. He's a great resource, but not everyone likes all of his answers, and not all of the questions address things within his wheelhouse. They're just his best take on it at the time. Sandy Munro helping Aptera source parts and components is great news. For a start, that kind of information and industry connection is priceless and will help Aptera reach production sooner than later. I hear that he has even invested in Aptera. I just reserved an Aptera and look forward to driving it. So Sandy has been hired by Aptera to modify their design process, to simplify it, to reduce the total number of parts, to replace some of them with smarter parts, with better parts, and that is exactly what he is good at. Looking at a process, a procedure, and a finished product and determining how it could be made much better, much quicker, much cheaper, and and with greater customer satisfaction. The fact that he is helping them is step one. The fact that they appear to be listening to his advice is much bigger. That's step two. And he is, according to him, invested. I don't know how heavily. I don't know anything about that other than he told me he's got skin in the game. He believes in this company. He believes in the product. Now, he is not a financial analyst. He's an engineer. So he's talking in terms of the product more than anything else. My personal opinion, I've seen a lot of concerns raised about Aptera. Well, it's too small. On the inside, it isn't. It has more cargo space than you might expect. Well, it's too dangerous. The smart car looks dangerous, but if you watch some crash tests, it's not. And the best accident is no accident. It has accident avoidance technology, like most new cars. Well, it's only got 2 seats. So does a Miata, and those were very popular. And unlike the Miata, this has a roof. It's an actual enclosed cabin. We'll know more when early models are out. Reviews will tell us everything we need to know. Is it peppy? Is it comfortable? Does it feel firmly planted? I believe the answer to all of those is probably yes. What's less certain is how well they will survive to reach volume production, because they will need additional fundraising between now and then to do that. Right now, funds are expensive. It'll be difficult to get the money they need to keep going at today's rates without the next iteration of the product, which they're working on. It's coming along. So Sandy has confidence in the product, and I have modest confidence in the financials. All remains to be seen. What I have seen is that the Aptera fans are engaged. They're dialed in. They know what they're talking about. They ask good questions. They ask smart questions, and they know the answers to all the questions, which is huge. Consumer enthusiasm is worth more than any amount of marketing. Great interview, thanks. Was hoping you would have touched on FUV, the Arcimoto. At one point, he was a contributor and advocate. What's up now? Sandy was hired, Munro & Associates was hired to come in and consult on the Arcimoto. Gally from Hyperchange was on the board of directors at the time, and it was his suggestion that they connect because Sandy is a wealth of knowledge and Gally can see that. So what has happened since then? He, as I understand, and this is not something they have told me, but this is what I've heard from Mark Frohnmeyer, the former CEO of Arcimoto. Munro and Associates suggested a lot of improvements to products, to the line itself, to the processes, and I don't know how much of that was actually adopted. That remains to be seen. Arcimoto is still ramping, but they're ramping slowly, and their cash burn is concerning. They have a new product, the Mean Lean machine, that's been unveiled, and then another version of it was unveiled. I do not know of any imminent plan to produce it. It's unfortunate because they need to start producing, and they need to start producing now. So I haven't touched on FUV. I saw them in San Diego. I saw them in Florida. I also saw them at TeslaCon in Texas. But I didn't really talk to them. I've done a lot of Arcimoto coverage. I am still a shareholder with one share left, but I sold out of my position because I didn't see the execution that I needed to see to feel comfortable with a continued investment. I hope that changes. I hope that improves quickly. They've made something like 750 of them now, but only sold about 65% of them. The rest have been kept in a fleet. I feel like that's a concern to me too. I hope that improves. And as soon as there's more news on Arcimoto, I will cover it. William says, great stuff. Great Q&A with Sandy. I like what he had to say about Nikola. It makes me feel better hearing him saying that. Getting a little discouraged with Nikola recently, and he reassured me with his comments. Thanks. So Nikola is the electric truck, the electric big rig company out of Arizona, where I have been. I have visited their site. I got an interview accidentally that they were very displeased about. And, tough luck. I asked to visit the site, and it was declined. They said they would not be rolling out a carpet of any color to participate in my coverage. And it's unfortunate that they didn't like the interview because the interview came out great. It left me very encouraged about the future of the company, and I have since been, I believe, quite nice to them. It is encouraging. Sandy, again, is looking at it from an engineering perspective, and the product makes sense. He didn't have a look behind the curtain to see what's going on with their hydrogen aspirations. I continue to believe that that is a money pit that others have tried with much deeper pockets to crack unsuccessfully. And if one of the little things they have going for them is that they received this absurdly discounted package for the power to produce the hydrogen, but that's only valid in like 1 or 2 counties in Arizona. That's great if you're going to have a local hydrogen fleet, but if you can't scale nationally, let alone globally, that's not necessarily going to get you quite as far as you'd want to go. Something is very wrong here. Nikola is solid. Sandy's credibility just went out the window. Again, I would say I didn't ask. I guess I did ask, are they going to make it? But Sandy is an engineer, and he's looking at it from an engineering perspective. And his engineering take is the truck works. The truck can be sold at a markup, and that is what it takes to get to the next level. He's not a financial analyst. He can't tell you how good their cash burn is. He can't tell you anything about their ability to borrow money in the future. He just knows that the truck is real. I don't remember if it was on camera that he told me this, but it was in a public setting, that he's had a number of employees who left Munro and Associates to go work for Nikola, and at least most, if not all of them, returned within months. That suggests to me that they weren't necessarily taking the advice that they were given, or maybe they got all the advice they needed, and there was no more room for those participants to meaningfully contribute in a way that justifies relocating from the Midwest to the desert. That is not a move that is for everyone. I know I would melt. I would not do well in that kind of weather. There were some comments about Lucid, but they weren't worthy of addressing in a format like this. They were ideas like they were good comments, but they weren't really questions so much as follow-ups. So, with all that said, should have made that a little bigger, huh? With all that said, I do want to thank my patrons who get early access, bonus content, an ad-free experience in many cases, all that good stuff. And again, I am on the road this week, going down to the Los Angeles Auto Show and the Peterson Museum's Tesla exhibit, grand opening. So that's why I'm doing some of this stuff early to get it out and keep the schedule, because YouTube is very cruel. It punishes you so much if you miss even a couple days in a row. So I just got to keep the spice flowing. That's the, probably got in my head from this Dune-looking scape up here. Spaceship on Mars next to a human colony, dramatic, bold lighting. And I do have a whole thing about how AI images are made, or at least how I make them. Very fun stuff. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's it. Stay tuned, stay juicy. Can't wait to hear from you, clever robots, when I'm back in studio.